They say winter never really ends in Minnesota, it just sleeps, buried beneath the snow, waiting for another reason to rise. When the nights stretch long and the lakes freeze over, something ancient stirs beneath the ice. Whispers slip between the pines. Lights flicker in the fog. Footsteps echo on frozen ground, but there's no one there. Tonight, we'll wander through the land of 10,000 lakes, where the cold air carries more than just the wind. From cursed mansions to haunted forests, these are the places where the dead don't rest and the living don't stay long. 1 Wabasha Street Caves, St. Paul, Minnesota. The city of St. Paul hides a world beneath its feet, a maze of sandstone caves carved into the cliffs beside the Mississippi. For centuries, they've been used as everything from storage vaults to speakeasies. But now, they serve as one of Minnesota's most haunted places and perhaps its most unwilling tomb. Step inside, and the temperature drops instantly. The air feels damp, thick like it's been holding its breath for decades. During Prohibition, this was where gangsters drank, danced, and disappeared. The caves echoed with jazz music, the click of dice, and the whisper of danger. But one night in the 1930s, the music stopped. According to legend, 3 men were gunned down during a mob shootout inside the Wabasha Caves. Their bodies were never found, no blood, no trace, only silence. Some say the sandstone walls swallowed them whole. Others believe their spirits never left. Visitors today report seeing men in zoot suits drifting through the dim corridors. A woman in a flowing 1930s gown appears by the bar, twirling to music that no longer plays. Security guards lock up at night and return to find footprints in the dust leading nowhere. Even when the caves host weddings or ghost tours, the air feels heavy with unfinished business. Some guests describe hearing muffled laughter, others, a scream that echoes just once before it fades into the earth. Would you raise a glass down here, knowing the ones who drank before you never truly left? The Wabasha Street Caves are proof that not everything frozen in time stays buried. 2 Four Paws Restaurant, St. Paul, Minnesota. Just a few blocks away from the cave stands another monument to the past, a French Second Empire mansion that once housed one of St. Paul's wealthiest merchants. Joseph Forepaugh. The mansion still exudes elegance, but beneath its grandeur lies heartbreak, betrayal, and a haunting that refuses to fade. In the late 1800s, Joseph fell in love not with his wife, but with one of the household maids. When his wife discovered the affair, the scandal destroyed him. Racked with guilt and humiliation, Joseph took his own life in the garden behind the mansion. The maid followed soon after, hanging herself from the staircase banister. When the house was later converted into a restaurant, diners began noticing strange things. Candles relighting themselves, footsteps on the upper floor when no one was there, the faint scent of lilac perfume drifting through the dining room, the same scent the maid was said to wear. Staff often saw a woman in a pale dress descending the grand staircase, her form shimmering like candlelight through fog. Some heard a man's voice whisper their name in an empty hallway. And in the garden, motion lights flicker on by themselves, as if someone is pacing back and forth, retracing the steps of regret. Even the owners admitted the spirits here seem emotional. Not malevolent, but restless. As if love, even when forbidden, can leave a mark stronger than death. If you ever dine at Four Paws, listen carefully. Between the clink of glasses and the laughter, you might hear the sigh of a heart that never stopped breaking. 3. Gray Cloud Island, Washington County, Minnesota. Few places in Minnesota feel as eerily untouched as Gray Cloud Island, a quiet stretch of land surrounded by the Mississippi River. Its beauty shadowed by generations of unease. Locals call it the island that doesn't forget. Native burial grounds, forgotten graves, and unsolved tragedies have given this patch of earth a reputation for restless spirits. Even police officers have spoken of strange encounters here. Headlights appearing on deserted roads, whispers from the trees, and cold hands brushing against their arms. Many residents avoid the island after dark, those who don't often regret it. Car engines stall for no reason. Radios pick up voices not static, but words. Once, a group of teenagers reported seeing a woman standing in the middle of the road, her eyes reflecting their headlights like a mirror. When they stopped to help, she vanished, leaving only footprints in the frost that stopped at the edge of the bridge. There's also talk of ghostly lights hovering over the cemetery, and of shadows that follow visitors home. Some claim the island itself seems alive, a presence that watches, listens, and remembers. Even in daylight, the silence here feels unnatural. Birds fall quiet. The wind doesn't move. It's as if the entire island is holding its breath, waiting for something to return. Would you dare step onto that soil, knowing it remembers every soul that's ever disturbed its sleep? On Gray Cloud Island, peace is a myth. The dead may rest elsewhere, but not here. 4. The Palmer House Hotel, Sauk Center, Minnesota. At first glance, the Palmer House looks charming, a brick-front hotel glowing warmly against the chill of a Minnesota night. But step through its doors, and you'll feel something else. A pulse beneath the stillness. A sense that you're being watched by more than the guests who check in after dark. Built in 1901 on the ashes of a former saloon and brothel that burned to the ground, the Palmer House quickly earned a reputation for more than hospitality. Employees whisper that the spirits of those who perished in the fire and a few who lived lives of sin inside its walls never left. Room 11 is the most notorious. Guests wake in the night to find the temperature plummeting, their breath hanging in the air like smoke. Shadows move under the door. One woman described a child's giggle in the corner of her room, followed by the pressure of small hands against her arm, cold as ice. Then there's Annie, the ghost said to linger in the basement, a former prostitute who met a violent end. She makes her presence known with the scent of roses and the sound of footsteps echoing behind whoever dares to enter. Paranormal investigators have captured full-bodied apparitions, whispers on EVPs, and even the sound of children running down empty hallways at 3A. Ma'am. Writers who stay here often say inspiration strikes harder than sleep. Sinclair Lewis, the famed Minnesota author, worked as a clerk at the hotel, and some claim he drew his unsettling small-town characters from the whispers that haunted these halls. Even now, staff say the spirits are curious rather than cruel. But as any guest will tell you, there's a fine line between curiosity and intrusion. When you close your eyes here, you never really sleep alone. 5. Glensheen Mansion, Duluth, Minnesota. Perched above the icy waters of Lake Superior, Glensheen Mansion looks like something out of a fairy tale until you know what happened inside. Built in 1908 by wealthy heiress Clara Congdon, the mansion became the site of one of Minnesota's most infamous murders. In 1977, Clara's daughter Elizabeth Congdon was found smothered in her bed, and her night nurse, Velma Piatila, beaten to death with a brass candlestick. The culprit was Elizabeth's adopted daughter's husband, who sought her inheritance. But what lingers isn't just the horror of that night, it's the feeling that the victims never truly left. Tour guides and visitors alike report cold spots in the hallways, the faint smell of lilac perfume, Elizabeth's favorite scent, and lights flickering on in her old bedroom. Footsteps echo through the upper floors long after closing hours. The staff say they sometimes feel watched from the grand staircase, though no one stands there. Security footage once showed curtains moving when the windows were closed tight against the Duluth winter. And in the garden, where the lake wind cuts sharp, some claim to see a figure dressed in early 20th century clothing staring out toward the water unmoving, as though waiting for someone who will never come. Today, the mansion is open for tours. Visitors marvel at its beauty, the carved wood, the stained glass, the frozen echoes of luxury. But beneath the elegance lies something colder than the lake itself, a grief that time has failed to thaw. Would you walk through those grand halls, knowing every step brings you closer to the scene of a murder that refuses to fade from memory? At Glensheen, beauty and tragedy are forever entwined, and neither will let go. 6. The Soap Factory, Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you've ever stood before an old industrial building and felt the air hum with a strange energy, you'll understand the Soap Factory. This crumbling brick structure on 2nd Street once churned out animal fat and lye, filling the air with a stench that clung to the city like decay. But when production stopped, the real haunting began. For decades, rumors spread that the factory was built over the site of older, darker foundations, perhaps a slaughterhouse, perhaps something worse. Workers spoke of screams echoing from the sub-basement, of doors locking themselves, and of shadows that seemed to shift when no one moved. When the building was repurposed as an art space, strange things continued. Artists reported equipment malfunctioning, tools flying across the room, and invisible hands brushing against their necks. A few described hearing whispers in languages no one could recognize. The staff tried to make light of it, calling the spirits the old tenants. But during the infamous haunted basement event, a Halloween attraction held yearly, the horror became too real. Guests fainted, actors quit mid-performance, and one visitor reportedly left with scratches down their back that bled through their shirt. Whether it's the residue of industrial cruelty or something older, darker, and buried beneath the foundation, no one knows. But those who've descended into that basement describe the same thing, a feeling that the air itself wants you gone. Even now, the building stands quiet, its windows black and hollow. Some nights, the lights flicker on for just a moment, then vanish as if someone deep inside is still working on something that should have stayed unfinished. 7. Fergus Falls State Hospital, Fergus Falls, Minnesota. Across a stretch of desolate land in western Minnesota stands a towering red brick fortress, elegant from afar, but decaying up close. The Fergus Falls State Hospital, built in 1890, was once a proud symbol of hope for the mentally ill. Today, it's one of the eeriest places in the state, where the silence feels heavier than stone. The building's design followed the Kirkbride plan, an architectural style meant to promote healing through sunlight, air, and order. But what happened inside its halls told another story. Overcrowding, outdated treatments, and despair twisted the hospital's good intentions into something closer to horror. Visitors brave enough to step inside now describe a stillness that defies explanation. Wheelchairs creak across empty corridors. A faint humming sound like someone singing down the hall drifts through the air, even when the building stands deserted. Photographers exploring the ruins claim to see figures watching them from upper windows, their faces pale and indistinct, Former employees spoke of hearing footsteps follow them at night, of doors slamming without warning, of whispers echoing from the locked wards. One caretaker recalled seeing the silhouette of a nurse moving from room to room, her lamp glowing dimly even though no electricity had run through that wing in years. It's said that not all who entered the Fergus Falls Hospital ever left. Some were buried in unmarked graves nearby, their names lost to history. Perhaps it's their voices that fill the hallways now, not with anger, but with longing, waiting for acknowledgement in the dark. There's talk of redevelopment, of tearing the hospital down to make way for new life. But those who've been inside wonder if that's wise. Some buildings don't want to be forgotten, and this one feels like it's still alive. 8. The Fitzgerald Theater, St. Paul's, Minnesota. Downtown St. Paul is known for its charm, its art, its culture, its old theaters that glow softly under street lamps. But inside the Fitzgerald Theater, the air carries a chill that doesn't come from the Minnesota winter. Opened in 1910, this historic venue has hosted countless performances, including Garrison Keillor's A Prairie Home Companion. Yet behind the applause and laughter, stagehands whisper about a ghost they call Ben. No one knows exactly who he was, a stagehand, an actor, perhaps even a construction worker, but everyone agrees he never left. The first reports began in the 1980s. Lights flickering during rehearsals, props moving on their own, a shadow pacing in the balcony. Technicians would feel a hand on their shoulder and turn around to find no one there. Others claim to see a figure in old-fashioned work clothes standing on stage, staring out at the empty seats, as though waiting for a curtain call that will never come. During live broadcasts, strange voices have been caught on tape, murmurs beneath the laughter, words no one said. One night, a janitor cleaning after midnight heard footsteps echoing on the stage above him. When he climbed the stairs, the sound stopped, but the stage lights were slowly dimming one by one, as if someone unseen was closing the show. Still, not all hauntings are cruel. Staff say Ben feels more like a guardian than a threat, watching over the theater, ensuring the performance never truly ends. The air near the stage feels warmer when the audience claps, as if something unseen smiles with them. But when the seats are empty and the echo of applause fades into silence, that warmth turns cold again. The spotlight lingers on an empty stage, waiting. Norn, Calumet Inn, Pipestone, Minnesota. Tucked away in the small town of Pipestone, the Calumet Inn stands like a relic from another century, grand, old-fashioned, and full of whispers. Built in 1888 from locally quarried red quartzite, the inn once hosted railroad travelers, soldiers, and drifters. But not everyone who checked in ever checked out. Over the decades, tragedy has clung to its walls, a fire in the early 1900s, mysterious deaths, and more than a few accidents. Locals say that's why the Calumet feels unsettled. Guests have woken in the night to the sound of boots pacing the hallway, or a soft knock on their door followed by silence. Room 308 is the most feared. Visitors there report cold drafts even with the windows sealed shut, and a strange feeling of being watched from the mirror. One woman said she felt someone sit on the edge of her bed, a heavy weight pressing the mattress, though she was alone. The staff speak of a man in old-fashioned clothes wandering the lobby, vanishing whenever someone approaches. Others have seen a woman in a long gown drift up the grand staircase, her figure glowing faintly before fading into the walls. Even the kitchen staff claim to hear disembodied voices calling their names during closing hours. Despite it all, The Calumet Inn remains open, a cozy destination for those who don't mind sharing their room with the past. Paranormal investigators often leave with recordings of ghostly whispers or unexplainable EMF spikes. Would you dare stay the night here, knowing that the walls have listened for more than a century and they might whisper back? In Pipestone, history never sleeps. It walks the halls of the Calumet, one creaking step at a time. 10 St. James Hotel, Red Wing, Minnesota. Overlooking the Mississippi River and the historic town of Red Wing stands the elegant St. James Hotel, a red brick masterpiece built in 1875 where the past and present seem to blur like reflections on the water. Travelers come here for comfort, but many leave with stories that chill the blood. From the outside, it looks inviting, flickering lamps in the windows, the faint scent of river air drifting through the lobby. But once inside, guests often notice how quiet it feels. Too quiet. The kind of silence that listens back. The most well-known ghost is a woman named Clara Lillyblad, a former housekeeper who died in the hotel more than a century ago. She's said to haunt room 310, her presence gentle yet unmistakable. Guests there often report waking in the middle of the night to the smell of lavender and the sensation of someone smoothing the blankets around them like a caretaker tucking them in. But not all encounters are so kind. In the lower halls, staff hear footsteps pacing just ahead of them, only to turn a corner and find no one there. Doors open by themselves, and mirrors fog over with the imprint of handprints when no one's touched them. The elevators seem to have a mind of their own. They stop on empty floors, their doors sliding open to reveal nothing but cold air and dim light. One guest swore she saw a shadowy figure standing inside the lift, tall, still, and featureless before it dissolved into mist. Even the river seems complicit in the haunting. On foggy nights, witnesses describe seeing faint lights moving along the shoreline, as if lanterns are being carried by unseen hands. Locals say it's the spirits of steamboat workers who once stayed at the hotel, still drawn to the glow of its windows. In Red Wing, history never fades. It lingers like the river mist and drifting between worlds, waiting for another guest to arrive. Minnesota is a land that wears its history like frost, thin, quiet, but always there. Beneath the calm lakes and snow-laden pines, something ancient watches. The echoes of laughter that never stopped, the flicker of lights where no one stands. The whispers that come not from the living, but from those who once called this frozen place home. So the next time you walk a lonely trail by moonlight or pass a shuttered building in the dead of winter, listen closely. The wind in Minnesota doesn't just carry snow, it carries stories. And if you're quiet enough, you might hear the dead whisper them back. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this chilling journey, don't forget to like, comment with your favorite haunted location, and subscribe for more weekly videos from the shadows.